Well, the 2021 college football regular season is coming to a close this week. That's the bad news. The good news? It's rivalry week. And for my money, rivalry week is the best week in all of college football every single year. There's good games all throughout the season, and I'll always love the start of college football season, right? The first week, the first couple of weeks, whatever, because, you go 7, 8, 9 months without any college football. You're so excited at the start of the season. So I like those weeks at the beginning of the season too, but I still think this is by far the best week of college football year in and year out every single year. Just amazing matchups all week long. We've had some already this week. For this week's preview and prediction videos, I'm actually going to do a couple of different videos. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the Thursday and Friday games, and then I'll make another video that comes out later on where I'll talk about the games on Saturday. Let's go. Yeah, good morning in that, though, but it's Uncle Lou here, though. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos every single day of the year, year-round. Some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You can let me know in the comments down below at the end of the video if you thought this one was watchable or not. That's not up to me. That's up to you, the viewer. Be sure to leave me some comments down below, too. Let me know which games you agree with, which games you disagree with. And I'd also like to know, what is the best rivalry game in all of college football? And to try to make it fair, don't tell me the rivalry game that your own team is involved in. So if you're an Alabama fan, I know you think the Iron Bowl, Alabama versus Auburn, is the greatest rivalry in all of college football. If you're an Ohio State or a Michigan fan, you probably think that game is the greatest rivalry in all of college football. Tell me the other game not involving your own team that you think is the greatest rivalry in all of college football. Let's get to today's previews and predictions. All right, as usual, all the numbers I use in today's video, the lines, odds, over-unders, point spreads, all that kind of stuff is going to come straight from the website over at www.betnow.eu. I've been using betnow.eu for a long time to get these numbers and to bet on college football games. If you'd like to start betting on college football games, check out betnow.eu. It's a good place to do it. Like I said, I've been doing it for years. I've never had a problem putting money in or getting money out. They've always treated me well. They'll treat you well, too. There's a promo code you can use when you get signed up. It's Uncle Lou, all lowercase letters, one word, Uncle Lou, and they'll give you a bonus on whatever you deposit. Good luck. All right, let's get started with these previews. Like I said, I'm going to do the Thursday and Friday games in this video. There'll be another video coming out where I do the Saturday games. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, by the way, in case I don't talk to you today. I'm recording this video around lunchtime on Wednesday, in case I don't talk to you again before tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody enjoys the holiday and you have a great time, great food with friends and family. All right, up first, Thursday on Thanksgiving, Thursday night, the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss on the road at Mississippi State. Mississippi State's a 1.5-point home favorite in this one. Comes on 7:30 on ESPN. I'm surprised Mississippi State is favored in this game. I know Mississippi State has looked okay at times this year, but they've also looked pretty bad at times. Ole Miss is a top 10 team in the latest college football playoff rankings. They only have a couple of losses, one of which was to Alabama. I think Ole Miss has looked like the better team for the majority of the year. I think they have the better quarterback in Matt Corral, and I even like their defense a little bit better than I like Mississippi State. These are two great offensive minds here. Lane Kiffin with Ole Miss, Mike Leach with Mississippi State. Will both of these coaches be with these same two schools next year? I don't know. It looks like we might be about to enter a shuffling around period in the SEC of coaches. We'll see. Lots of rumors out there about Lane Kiffin to LSU, to Florida, to a couple other places, right? Some rumors out there about Auburn head coach Harsin leaving for the Washington job. Some even weirder rumors about Lincoln Riley going to LSU and then Josh Heupel leaving Tennessee for Oklahoma. I don't see that happening, but just a lot of strange coaching rumors going on right now within the SEC. Back to this game, though. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. I'm surprised they're an underdog. I know it's a rivalry game, and you're going to hear this a lot about games this week. Well, in rivalry games, you can just throw the records out the window. I'm guilty of assuming that sometimes too, but the reality is the better team usually wins whether it's a rivalry game or not. And in this case, I happen to think Ole Miss is the better team, even though they're a 1.5-point underdog. You get 2 or 3 points from Vegas usually for being at home. Mississippi State's only favored by 1.5, so that tells me on a neutral field, Vegas thinks Ole Miss is maybe a point better. They're leaning towards Mississippi State because it's a home game for them. Not a lot of travel for Ole Miss fans to get to Mississippi State. It's a game within the state, right? So there will be some Ole Miss fans there. I'm going to go with Ole Miss on the money line. I don't even think I need the 1.5 points. Give me Lane Kiffin to win the game straight up. All right, moving on to the Friday games. What about Kansas State on the road at Texas, 12 p.m. on Fox? Is Texas really going to finish the season on a 7-game losing streak? Texas has currently lost 6 games in a row. A couple of weeks ago when they lost their 5th game in a row, people were making a big deal about it because it was the first time since the mid-50s that Texas had lost 5 games in a row. They went ahead and went out and broke that streak and lost another game last week to a bad West Virginia team. They are playing at home, Texas is. First half of the season, really up through the 8th, 9th week of the season, Texas was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type of team. They played really good in the first half of a lot of games and then gave games away in the second half, and in a lot of cases giving up big second half leads and losing. Then they had the nightmare that was the Kansas game where it was sort of the opposite. They were getting blown out in the first half. They made a huge comeback in the second half, but fell short when Kansas hit a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. And then I mentioned losing to West Virginia last week. It was a road game for Texas. They had to travel, but still West Virginia has not been a good team this year at all. Kansas State has been Kansas State. They're a middling sort of team, right? They're not Kansas. They're also not Oklahoma or this year Baylor. They're just sort of a vanilla ice cream type of team. I have a feeling Kansas State wins this game. I don't know how you can put any money on Texas at this point. I think they've got some culture issues going on there. I think there's some issues between the players and the coaches. I'm not sure who's to blame for that. I know Texas fans are upset when you look down and you see yourself sitting there at 3 wins and you're not happy with what Sarkisian has put out on the field this year. I'm not sure how much of this is Sarkisian and the coaching staff's fault and how much of it is just a brand new coaching staff coming in and the players that are there not really buying into what the coaches are selling. Sarkisian maybe has a totally different approach or way he handles himself and the team that the players just aren't used to, but it appears for whatever reason that a lot of these players are just not buying what Sarkisian and company are selling. I think the best case scenario for Texas, and this was mentioned by an assistant coach at Texas a couple of weeks ago with some leaked audio from the team bus, you might see a lot of Texas players enter the portal this season, and that might be the best case scenario for those players, for the coaches, and for the University of Texas Longhorns football team going forward. Could be that you need a big overhaul of the roster, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but from a relationship perspective. For whatever reason, these players just don't seem to be buying in under Sarkisian, and it's hard for me to imagine that suddenly the last game of the year, they're going to flip some sort of a light switch and put it all together. I probably wouldn't bet on this game. I do think Texas is the better team. It's a home game, senior day, last game in that stadium for a lot of the Texas upperclassmen. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won. I just can't put a dime on Texas right now. They look that bad. I'm going to take Kansas State here and the 3 points. Speaking of teams that can't win games, 1:30 on the Big Ten Network, Nebraska is hosting Iowa, and Iowa's a 1.5-point road favorite. Nebraska, of course, the best 3-win team in the history of college football, at least if you believe what the Ohio State fans are running around trying to tell people. I don't understand why fans can't just accept things for what they are. Ohio State goes out and has one of the most dominating performances in a top 10 matchup that we've seen in a long time. They beat Michigan State last week 56-7. They were up 49-0 at halftime. C.J. Stroud likely cemented himself as the Heisman Trophy winner. They've got 3 NFL wide receivers that would start anywhere in America. They've got an amazing freshman running back in Travion Henderson who can take the ball 80 yards every time he touches it. Master Teague, not that bad either at running back. They're just absolutely loaded. That was a great game. Instead of talking about that, they're still running around on the internet trying to convince people that barely beating Nebraska was impressive because, quote unquote, I know they only have 3 wins, but they're still a good team. No, there is no such thing as a good 3-win team. They don't exist. Well, they're close. They just can't finish games. I know. And that's the sign of a bad team. A team that can't finish games, and that's what Nebraska is. They're a bad team. Iowa was ranked number 2 in the nation at one point this year. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Seems like that was forever ago, but it was really only about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Iowa was ranked number 2. They've caught some losses since then. They got to travel to Nebraska as a 1.5-point underdog. You know what? As much as I could not go in on Texas, I think Texas's losing streak may continue. Nebraska may break theirs. I'm going to take Nebraska at home and the 1.5 points, though, because I could see this. Iowa doesn't score a lot of points. They play good defense. I could see a thing here where Iowa's up by, a couple of points maybe at the end, and Nebraska kicks a field goal, or Nebraska's up 2, and Iowa kicks a field goal and wins by 1. In any case, I like the 1.5 points there. I'm going to take Nebraska in that 1.5. All right, 3:30 on ABC. Cincinnati, currently ranked 4th in the latest playoff committee ranking that came out last night, the highest rating or ranking a group of 5 team has ever had in the playoff era, at least the highest ranking the playoff committee has ever given a group of 5 team. And it looks like things are set up right now for Cincinnati to get into the playoffs if they win their next 2 games, starting this week on the road at a pretty bad East Carolina team. And Cincinnati's a 14-point road favorite. Now, Cincinnati, the first half of the season, they did really what people thought they were going to do and what most people thought they needed to do, which was to go out and blow out a lot of inferior teams. They ended up beating Indiana, and then they had the big game with Notre Dame, right, on the road in South Bend. They go in there, they beat Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns. People are thinking, oh, okay, here we go. And then for about the next 4 or 5 weeks, they kind of just treaded water and floated along. Now, they didn't catch a loss, which is better than, what a lot of teams can say. A lot of teams had bad weeks and lost. Cincinnati had several bad weeks in a row, but won. Now, they weren't impressive wins. They were 1- and 2-score wins. They were late fourth quarter kind of scores to make the game look worse than it really was. If you watch the games, though, Cincinnati was not very impressive for a 4 or 5 week period after that Notre Dame game. They turned that around last week and finally blew somebody out again. I think it continues this week on the road at East Carolina. I think Cincinnati is hitting their stride at the right time, the end of the season. They're going to have to play Houston next week in the conference championship game. Houston is ranked, I think, 22nd or 21st, something like that in the most recent playoff ranking that came out last night. So if Cincinnati beats them handily, the playoff committee is going to consider that a pretty good win. I think if Cincinnati wins out, they're most likely in the playoffs. I think they're going to blow ECU out this weekend. I'm going to take Cincinnati and lay to 14. Mizzou at Arkansas, the only SEC game on Friday. Not sure how much of a rivalry this is, but I don't know. I don't think either of these teams even have a rivalry, honestly. Now, there may be some Arkansas fans who say, oh, no, we have a rivalry with this team or that team. I don't know. You go around and just ask average college football fans around the country, tell me who Mizzou's rival is. Tell me who Arkansas's rival is. Don't really think either one of these teams has one. Missouri has to go on the road to Arkansas, where Arkansas is a 15-point home favorite. I do think Arkansas will win the game. They played great last week against Alabama, took them right down to the wire. Alabama somehow and for some reason had to survive an onside kick at the end of that game to hang on to win by 1 score. I do think Arkansas will win this game against Missouri. However, playing Alabama that close down to the end can take a lot out of a team, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. I wouldn't be surprised to see Arkansas maybe start a little slow, maybe look a little sloppy. They may be a little beat up. I'm going to take Mizzou to cover the 15. I do not think Mizzou will win the game. I think Arkansas wins the game, but by less than 15. Give me Missouri and the 15 points. All right, Friday night at 7 o'clock over on ESPN, a battle of the Tar Heel State, though. North Carolina and NC State. Stop calling me, though. Hello? No. I'm doing LouTube, son. Sorry about that. Where were we? North Carolina at NC State. Now, this is the football rivalry, okay? Now, everyone is used to North Carolina versus Duke being a huge rivalry in basketball. Somehow that's flipped around in football, and North Carolina, NC State is considered the bigger rivalry in the ACC. The North Carolina-Duke game, not so much. NC State-Duke, not so much. This is the football rivalry, North Carolina versus NC State, not North Carolina versus Duke like we see in basketball every year. NC State's a 6.5-point home favorite. North Carolina has been one of the biggest Jekyll and Hyde teams of the season to me. There's a list of teams who have been extremely disappointing this year based on offseason and preseason expectations. Of course, Clemson But North Carolina has got to be on that list too. They were in the top 10 in every single preseason poll on planet Earth. They came out and lost in week 1, and since then it's been a roller coaster ride for North Carolina. They're like a yo-yo team. One week they're down, the next week they're up. You don't know what you're going to get week to week this year from this North Carolina team, which is unusual with a third-year starting QB Heisman candidate in Sam Howell, who, again, in the offseason, in the preseason, people had him on the Heisman list, was projected to be one of the first quarterbacks taken in next year's NFL draft, which he may still be. But his performance this year has not been consistently good. It just hasn't. In fact, he's had some pretty bad games. He's had some really good games, too. It makes it hard to bet on North Carolina, in my opinion, because you just don't know what version of North Carolina you're going to get. So you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, if North Carolina plays, if we get the good North Carolina, can they keep this game within 6.5 points? That's what you have to ask yourself, because NC State is a 6.5-point home favorite. Okay, so even if North Carolina plays the best we've seen them play this year, is that good enough to beat NC State or stay within a touchdown? What if they play the worst we've seen them play? Well, if they play the worst we've seen them play, they're not going to keep this within 6.5. NC State will run away with it. I'm going to sort of cut it in the middle here. I think we get somewhere in the middle of the road. I don't think that's good enough for the Tar Heels. They had a lot of dreams in the preseason. Those were gone a long time ago. Not sure how much motivation is left here for this North Carolina team. Again, senior day for NC State, with it being their final home game. I'm going to take the Wolfpack, NC State, and lay to 6.5 points. All right, there you go. There's some games that interest me for Thursday and Friday. And again, I'll be making another one of these videos for all the Saturday games, and I have a Hype and Hate video for Georgia Tech coming out this week too. So make sure you check that out. I'll be streaming tomorrow night, Thanksgiving night, Thursday night, during the Egg Bowl. I'm going to try to be back home from my Thanksgiving festivities. By 7:30, so I can go ahead and start my Thursday night stream the same time the Egg Bowl starts. I usually do a call-in show on Thursday nights. We'll probably still do a call-in show. We'll probably still take some calls, but I'll have the Egg Bowl on. Maybe we'll watch some of the Egg Bowl and then take some phone calls, and depending on what's going on with the game, if it's a good game, a close game, or if it's a blowout, that will determine when we start the phone calls or what we do with the phone calls. But in any case, I'll be live tomorrow night. Thursday night for the Egg Bowl. Anyway, again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. I love you guys, and have a good morning.